Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right, guys, welcome again to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. My name is Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on Twitter and Clubhouse. Hope you'll join us on Monday nights at 8:30 Eastern Time. Cindy Olin and I are rolling out Clubhouse clubs for you. And man, they've been on fire lately, so hope you'll join us. On YouTube, you can look up all the videos by searching my name, SCOTMCKAY. I'm Real Scott McKay on Instagram. The website is mountaintoppodcast.com as always. And I also invite every one of you guys to join us on Facebook at the Mountaintop Summit Facebook group. With me today is a returning guest. And last time we talked about something that was, I don't know, a little bit off topic for this cat, but now he's coming back for the attack. And what we're going to talk about is exactly what his best-selling book is about. His name is GS Youngblood. And the book, of course, is called The Masculine in Relationship, a blueprint for inspiring the trust, lust, and devotion of a strong woman. GS, welcome back to the program, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Scott.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you. I'll tell you what, back when I was a youngish man, I had a guy who was my boss, and he was probably about 60, 62 years old. Mm-hmm. And he gave me the best relationship advice I have ever had to this day. He said, make sure you marry a strong woman.
Nice. How apropos.
Now, he had done that in his own life. Looking back, his wife was indeed the exact kind of strong woman he was talking about. Mm-hmm. But in my young naivete, I neglected to ask him what exactly he meant by that. I didn't know if he meant marry a power lifter or what. Okay. So I married the wrong woman, GS. She was not very strong emotionally. She was not very strong with her self-esteem. She was not very strong in terms of her psychological composition, and she ruined my life. And perhaps too little too late, right? But I suddenly figured out what it meant to marry a strong woman and to have a strong woman in my life. But you know what? I don't want to steal all your thunder. You wrote the book on this, literally. So absolutely, man. GS, lay out for these guys what a strong woman actually means.
Okay. Well, I'm here to update the advice from your old boss. You ready for it?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Don't marry a strong woman.
Really?
I'm kidding, of course, but it's don't marry a strong woman if you're a guy that doesn't want to grow, if you're a guy that doesn't really know how to bring it in relationship with a capable woman, if you want to be just unquestioned, no matter what you do, no matter how closed you are emotionally, or how ungiving, ungenerous you are emotionally, or in relationship, then definitely don't marry a strong woman. And of course, I'm saying this a bit tongue in cheek. I'll roll back and answer the question that you asked, and then let's talk about why you would want to marry a strong woman. You know, a strong woman is someone who is not going to tolerate you not bringing your leadership into the equation in the relationship. And what that means is if you're a guy that tells himself, you know, like a lot of guys, I'm just an easygoing dude, I don't have a lot of needs and I'm good here. A lot of guys think that's a pleasing thing for a partner, but it actually drives them batty, and it actually really prevents them from having full respect from you when you're one of those guys that is possibly a little directionless in life, or even if you have a direction, if you know what you're doing, say professionally, you're still pretty indecisive in the home life, and so what needs to get fixed, where you go to dinner, how to discipline the children, all of these things that are part of, home life, at least for a family. A lot of guys don't often bring their own clarity. They don't know what they want in situations like that. And they're not very decisive. And they kind of go into this mode of, I'll just figure out what she wants and give it to her, and then she'll be happy. And to me, that's a guy that doesn't have a lot of clarity, direction, and structure for himself and doesn't create it for others. And a strong woman is the kind of woman that's not going to put up with that. She's not going to be satisfied with a man that isn't decisive, doesn't have his own clarity, doesn't have his own opinions, doesn't have his own boundaries, quite frankly. So a strong woman is somebody that's not going to put up with that. A strong woman is somebody that's not going to put up with your unevolved emotional capacity. So if you're the kind of guy that gets butthurt when she gets upset and withdraws, if you're the kind of guy that gets defensive every time that she's upset with something, if you're the kind of guy that really just loses it every time she has an emotional breakdown, that's the kind of guy that these women, a strong woman, is not going to feel safe with, because they really don't have the emotional capacities that she needs to fully let her guard down, to fully be herself and all of her emotional expressions across the range. So a strong woman is somebody that's not going to tolerate your emotional dysfunction, your lack of emotional generosity and emotional capacity. So I could go on and on, but it's the kind of woman that really expects you to step up in your life, in your emotional life, in your professional life, and be the kind of grounded man that has structure, that makes her feel safe, that she feels like she deserves. And so anyway, I don't want to just go on a monologue about all the qualities of a strong woman, but those are some of the characteristics that I've found in some of the strong women that I've encountered.
Well, that sounds to me like the blueprint for how to attract a woman with natural masculinity in general. I mean, women want a man who can provide, protect, preside.
Exactly.
And when you don't know how to do that, you don't make her feel safe. And you mentioned that safe word, literal safe word, safety. And when that isn't present, no woman feels attracted, because that's the primal element of how masculinity and femininity polarize each other. So you're talking about a woman who will stand up and say what she wants, who knows what she wants, who can perhaps articulate this, and won't have that low self-esteem or that lack of grit whereby she won't tolerate a guy who's any less than that. Another thing you mentioned, kind of in your tongue-in-cheek mode there when you first started rolling with this, is that maybe you don't want to marry a strong woman. And indeed, if you're the kind of guy who is a controlling jerk and you want a woman under your thumb, then you're going to want this shrinking violets of a chica who kind of doesn't really say out loud what she wants. But ultimately, even if you do get into a relationship like that because you're a dysfunctional guy and you find your dysfunctional honey, how healthy a relationship is that really going to be anyway? Wouldn't you rather be a strong guy with a strong, gritty woman?
Yeah, I'll roll back to what you said. It's like, do you actually want a strong woman? And it could be that sort of unevolved jerk that you described, or it could be a guy who's not necessarily a jerk, but he just hasn't learned to really rest in his own power, just to have his own clarity, his own opinions, his own boundaries. And there's a lot of guys like that. And unfortunately, what we find is that sometimes the strong women and a weak man will sometimes gravitate toward each other. It sounds a little perverse, but sometimes a lot of these guys are, honestly, they're looking for mommy. They don't know it, but subconsciously they're looking for somebody who will just kind of take charge for them. And some of these strong women, they have to be so assertive often in their business life. Sometimes at first, these guys who are a little more easygoing seem attractive to them. Again, this is a little twisted. But what they realize is that very soon they get very, very tired of this man's lack of backbone. And so, guys, if you're the kind of guy that really doesn't rest in his own power, but you're, attracted to that type A woman that you've, somehow met, be careful, because after a while the shine can wear off, and it can get very hard if you don't bring the qualities to be with a woman like that. And those qualities, Scott, as you correctly pointed out, are written in the blueprint, which is the masculine blueprint in the book that I wrote.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about kind of as if it's going to be a longer term when those two don't get along. The strong woman who's in her masculine and the guy who's just flat out weak. Some people may purport that, the guy can carry the feminine traits and the woman can carry the masculine as long as there's that polarity. But if someone's strong and the other person's weak, that relationship is going to be short-lived, won't it?
Yeah, because that's not strong and weak are not a polarity. I think
exactly.
Masculine and feminine are polarity. Responsive and directive is a polarity. But I like how you put that. Strong and weak is not polarity. That's dysfunction.
Yes, exactly. And weak and weak.
Yeah.
Are dysfunctional.
But weak and weak will just be in like a quiet death. It's kind of like being an animal locked in a zoo until you die. You're just living this quiet death every day of turning the crank and with this person that you're just not attracted to.
Or they'll just both be immature and unevolved with each other and just be at each other's throats like a couple of children until they destroy each other. It's one or the other. Both of them are bad.
Both of them are horrible. Divorce is infinitely preferable in my book to that kind of outcome.
Yeah, preferably before you've brought children into the world to be subject to this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of my motivations. You know, I'm one of those guys that had to sit his children down and say, children, I'm sorry, mommy and daddy aren't staying together. And I can tell you with absolute clarity, that was the worst day of my life. And if I can help other guys realize that things can be different and maybe one less kid in the world's got to hear that speech, I'll be very happy about the work I do. And that's a core message that I have for these guys. Guys, things can be different. Even if you've been getting steamrolled by your woman for years because for whatever reason you're not able to stand up to her, it can be different. You don't have to be taller, richer, smarter, etc. You know, embody the blueprint. That's why I wrote it. Embody the blueprint. And I guarantee some things are going to get better.
Yeah, you and I have that in common. First time around, it didn't work so well for us.
Yeah.
And my ex was clinically psychotic. She was ultimately under the care of a psychiatrist, got sent away for a while. So when I say I have a crazy ex, it's not just a euphemism.
Yeah.
And I use the word euphemism euphemistically.
There you go.
I had a legitimately crazy ex. And everybody told me, as these guys know, GS, that, you know, you couldn't have been a better father. You couldn't have been a better husband. It was all her and not you. But I tell you what, GS, I did not like feeling like a victim. And I said to myself, how can I be a stronger man? How can I find out what it takes to attract a good woman? How can I start taking that advice I was given so many years before and maybe attract a stronger woman next time? And what do you know? I did better because I worked harder. I did the self-work and it paid off. Now, I want you to talk to these guys a little bit about the difference between a strong woman and a woman who's not feminine. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, do they?
So a woman who is, now, if she stays in her masculine, if she only has masculine energy, then yeah, you can very easily say that, you know, she's a strong woman, but in a different way. I'm talking about a woman that's got both a feminine and a masculine. And, you know, we're really almost talking about the strong feminine. I'm not even talking about her strong masculine characteristics for the moment, but her strong feminine of demanding that you be emotionally available. Like that's one of the biggest ones I hear from men about their wife's dissatisfaction. You know, he brings home the bacon, he doesn't cheat on her, he's a pretty good father, and she's still leaving. She's still walking out the door because they don't feel emotionally connected to us. And so a strong woman in her strong feminine is going to be somebody who doesn't tolerate that. You know, she's not going to tolerate the man that stays shut down, isn't emotionally available. And she's going to say, I don't like this. I can't live with this. I'm in pain. And she's going to express that to you, and she's not going to back down from that need. So, you know, that's one, I think, one element of how a strong feminine would operate, which is different than her masculine characteristics of being able to have a job where she gets shit done, or even in a family where she's getting shit done and shepherding the kids through the growing years. That's her in her strong feminine, where she's demanding your emotional availability and not settling for less, which could be different from her in her masculine energy that she might take to the job or getting shit done running the household. Yeah,
absolutely, man. And I'll tell you what, when you started talking about what a strong woman actually is, you threw me for a loop a little bit. And I, in turn, am going to return serve by throwing a wrench in the works. When I think of a strong woman, I'm not only thinking of what is she going to demand of me, but also what is she going to bring to the table? What good is she going to bring to me in my life? And I expected you to say, well, a strong woman isn't easily offended. She's not weak-willed. She's not easily led away by some guy flirting with her. She's not going to embarrass you in front of her friends or have these immature tendencies where she embarrasses you in public or gets drunk or doesn't do anything other than bring you a sense of great pride and is a crown on your head, like it says in the book of Proverbs. And that's strong now, isn't it? That's a woman who is just replete with a beautiful, strong, good, solid character. She does what is right even when nobody is looking, even when it's not convenient, when it's not easy. And she brings you joy. She brings you feminine gifts of comfort, fun, playfulness. She recharges your batteries after a long day of work. She treats you like the king you are, and in turn, she expects to be treated like a queen. That's what I think of when I think of a strong woman. And man, that just sounds like, you use the word blueprint. To me, man, if there's a blueprint that's even perhaps divinely inspired, that's it in my mind. Comment on that.
Yeah. Do you know what you just described?
Tell me.
The subtitle of the book, Trust, Lust, and Devotion. A lot of the things that you talked about were elements of devotion. When a woman feels met, she feels understood, she feels provided for, she feels protected, she feels your groundedness. In general, now I can't say for 100% of cases, but let's just make a generalization for discussion purposes. In general, that is going to evoke a deep devotion in her where she does many of the things that are on your list. And I would posit that the rest of the things on your list, most of them fit in somewhere in trust or lust. And so the kind of woman that you just described, yes, she's very, what I heard was emotionally mature in what you described. But I really heard she trusts you. She's still sexually attracted to you, and she's devoted to you where she gives herself to you and doesn't embarrass you and doesn't betray you and et cetera, et cetera. If you come in and you're grounded and you create clarity and structure and you create safety for her, which as we've talked about is the blueprint, you're going to get, that's going to evoke the kind of qualities that you just described in your words earlier on this. So that's my take. That's how I match those two up.
Well, you've led. Yeah. You've been a leader.
Exactly.
And the women rise up to meet it. It's like if any of you guys are car guys or motorcycle guys, and you've got the skills to drive a car or ride a motorcycle at high speed with great skill and dexterity, you know that the machine responds to your input. And that's the mark of a good machine. When you can feel the front end and feel the tires and the suspension is dialed, you are the driver, you drive that machine and the machine just responds. Mm-hmm. If you've ever played baseball and when you've just hit a home run, like, you see like one of the greats, the home run hitters in Major League Baseball, especially back in the day, they would hit that home run and just stand there and watch it leave the park. Mm-hmm. Or the NBA player who takes that 3-pointer and doesn't even have to watch it go in. I just freaking love that. Steph Curry will do that,
Yeah, exactly.
And the guy who throws a 60-yard touchdown in the Super Bowl and he's already pumping his arm before the guy's even caught it because there's a sweet spot there. Mm-hmm. It just feels right. And I got to tell you something, GS. This is trustworthy. As long as you're dealing with a woman who's been raised right, her mommy and daddy loved her, she cares about character, and she loves being a woman. Mm-hmm. She hasn't been influenced by this negativity and the man-hating bias. We've had guests on this show, male and female, talk about that at length. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is, if you're a man who loves women, okay, and we talked about that in this show, guys, if you didn't listen to that particular episode with Zamparion, go revisit that because, man, was that an excellent prerequisite for what we're talking about right here and now. And what happens, though, is a lot of guys think, you know what? First of all, I can fake it till I make it. I don't have to do what I call, GS, deserving what I want. I'll just luck into it. I can be a schlub. I can really not have a whole lot of ambition or even really a whole lot of character. And someday my own private supermodel will show up and just accept me as I am. And there are a lot of women out there thinking the same thing. And we're all collectively dreaming. Meanwhile, at the same time, there are a lot of guys who haven't done the self-work. And they haven't really done what it takes to become attractive to women. And they've grown jaded in their own right. They'll sit there and be mad and throw rocks at all the angry man-bashing feminists, but then they'll label themselves men going their own way, red pill, manosphere. Women are just no darn good. Yeah, well, you know what? Garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And A lot of those guys will make an excuse. When these women are beautiful, hot, and sexy, they think they can just have the world by the tail, expect that men will kowtow to them, give them whatever they want, and all those women are selfish. They have their own special vernacular to talk about how selfish they are. You know, they're solipsistic, right? They're hypergamous. And yet, what those guys are blind to, GS, and I would love to hear your take on this, when they've been jaded into thinking that, hey, this is all women's fault instead of a direct product of my own lack of leadership, or leading in the wrong direction is probably a better way to put it. What they're realizing is, hey, you know what? All the women out there who are hot, sexy, gorgeous, fantastic, and were raised right. You know, they're daddy's little girl. They have faith, they have character, they want to do the right thing regardless of what they look like on the outside, because they realize, you know what, they have a life to live that's going to go far beyond the expiration date on their outward looks. Women who think like that are treasures. But you know what they're not doing? They're not going out with guys who don't like or respect women at the very core. Just like you guys out there who are big four men aren't going to even touch with a 10-foot pole any woman out there who doesn't like men, who doesn't respect men. You're not going to be caught dead in that relationship, and you know it.
Yep. Yeah, you're bringing up the notion of the word I put to it is competition. And what I mean by that is we we compete in sports, we compete at work, and then we forget that we have to compete for a good woman. And let me qualify what I mean by that is I'm a believer that the kind of woman you want is the one that will exhibit the traits that you laid out. Then I talked about those matching up with trust, lust, and devotion. So when I come as a strong, good man, you know, I'm grounded, I have clarity, I make her feel safe. When I come with that, the kind of woman I want gives me everything in terms of devotion and all the other things that we talked about. And the woman that I've decided that I want calls me out when I don't, and she won't let me settle for less. Like, to me, it's actually the kind of relationship I'm in now. You know, my woman, she's got a strong side to her, and she's got a very strong feminine. And when I bring it, she is dazzling. And when I don't bring it, when I play small, when I don't make myself available, when I don't have my own clarity and groundedness, she lets me know it. Not in a punitive way at all, but she lets me know the pain in her heart when I'm not playing my biggest game. And that's the kind of woman I want. And I take on the responsibility. This is for me. This is my personal philosophy. And one that I share with my clients is earn it every day. And a good woman will give you everything. Everything that you ever wanted, a good woman will give it to you when you earn it every day. And you live the blueprint.
I don't think it's an accident that football is a metaphor for masculine endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And the cheerleaders are all the girls.
All right.
Usually.
All right.
Man, my wife is my biggest cheerleader. And she expects me to frickin' go out there and throw a touchdown.
Yeah.
She believes in my quarterbacking skills even when I do not.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to be a better man, like Jack Nicholson once said in the movies, right?
Totally. Yeah. As good as it gets. Yeah.
As good as it gets.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that when women bring that feminine energy, we want to be better men? What is it? Is it supernatural? Is it God's dirty little trick? Is it legit?
No,
what is it?
Here's my take. I draw on a guy named Sam Keen. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Scott. He wrote a book. He wrote several books, but the one that I like the most is called Fire in the Belly. And, you know, what he talks about is, look, we were raised by mommy. The first damn thing you see, for the most part, in your life is mommy. Not true for everybody, but for 99% of people. And you grow up looking into mother's eyes. And at a biological level, that creates an imprint on you. That's the feminine that, you know, when she's smiling, present, and happy, you're smiling, present, and happy baby. And when mom's absent, you know, then the baby wails. I mean, anybody who's got kids understands that. So the feminine, first embodied as our mother, is really imprinted pretty deeply within us, so that when we get into a relationship with a feminine being, it holds that importance for us, you know, even if you're not a panderer, you don't pander to women. So this doesn't suggest that. This happens to every guy. the woman's approval, her feeling good about us, smiling and being in an approving energy, it unfortunately affects all of us at a very deep level. I mean, picture when your woman frowns at you and when your woman smiles at you. It's a very different, inner experience for the man. And so there's like a biological amplifier to how our woman feels about us. And when she sees us being in our fullness and then radiates that back to us, it feels fucking good. It feels really fucking good. And quite frankly, guys are not very robust to a woman's disappointment. I would posit that anybody's listening to this, you don't have to be a panderer for this to be true. We're all susceptible to our woman's disappointment. I think that's the word I was looking for, to her disappointment.
Well, you know what? I think when you're dealing with a couple who are trying to do right for each other, I think when we are disappointing, we understand that before it's ever even brought to our attention by our partner. It's just kind of an affirmative role our partner takes in saying, yeah, you know what? That was pretty blasted disappointing. Let's do better. And it's not hate. It's not an insult. It's partnership. It's like, hey, you know what? We're a team here. We need to be in this to win it. And we need to do that together. And I love everything that you're saying, because the bottom line here, GS, is that men and women were designed to be in partnership, damn it. We're not designed to be adversaries. If anybody ever invites me to come on their show or on their radio station or whatever and talk about the war between the sexes, I'm like, either you're going to reframe that or I'm not in, because I just don't want any part of it. Yeah. I don't want to talk about a war between the sexes. Yeah. Someone had me on their podcast and ended up talking about masculinity and femininity and polarity with me, like we're doing so wonderfully here, frankly. And they titled that episode as such, and I was kind of a little indignant about it, but they didn't want to change it. But under normal circumstances, and if I have anything to do with it, obviously that wasn't my show, this is, there will never be a title of this particular podcast that approaches anything close to a war between the sexes, because I'm all about men and women being in partnership together. I have this saying, GS, men are from Earth and women are from Earth. How about that for a book title?
I love that.
Yeah, right on. His name is GS Youngblood. He is the author of the fantastic book that you should get your hands on called The Masculine in Relationship, a blueprint for inspiring the trust, lust, and devotion of a strong woman. And what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go ahead and give it its rightful place at the top of the queue on my Amazon influencer page right now. GS has been on the show before, but I'm going to go ahead and boost that to the top for you guys. You should grab a copy. It's a great book. It's very highly acclaimed. And what I'm going to do when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com/strong, STRONG, is I'm going to point you to GS's website, which, organically speaking is gsyoungblood.com, but, got to keep the decorum around here and put a pointer on it from mountaintoppodcast.com. Hey, what's the elevator pitch for what they're going to find when they get there, GS?
What you'll find is a little bit of information on the book, so you know what you're getting into, as well as some videos. But the most important thing is to get on the mailing list, because you're going to get announcements about my upcoming embodiment course, which I'm putting out on video, and the dark sexual energy workshop that I'll be putting together over the summer. So you want to get first in line to get notified when those things are ready.
Well, both of those programs that you have upcoming sound fascinating. And frankly, they sound like fuel for the next time you come on the show. There's a lot to discuss there, I'm sure.
Awesome, man. Love it. Let's do it again.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today, GS. It's great to have you back. And what a great and fervent conversation. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks to you, Scott. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Likewise. And gentlemen, if you have not yet visited mountaintoppodcast.com, you can definitely find a link to GS's website. You can also download a copy of Sticking Points Solved, which is my free book for you. And when you get that book, you'll also be subscribed to my daily fluff-free newsletter. You can also talk to me for free for 25 minutes about what's on your mind, maybe put together a plan of action to take you from where you are right now to where you want to be with women, in your career and the adventures you've been trying to have for your whole life, but just haven't yet. And frankly, guys, on that note, a lot of you have been on the fence for quite some time now, and it's time to kick yourself off that fence onto the right side. Talk to me for free for 25 minutes. You can sign up, get on my calendar on the spot electronically there at mountaintoppodcast.com. Also, once again, want to thank my sponsors, which are Origin in Maine, Jocko Willing's company, the best boots, the best jeans you will ever wear, and absolutely the best protein powder you have ever tried in your entire life. If you're into that sort of thing, you work out, man, there is none better than Jocko's Milk. It's great stuff. And if you haven't yet partaken of the goods from herosoap.com, man, these are the best bars of soap you'll ever have. They won't feminize you, no parabens, no phthalates. And listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you do not have some of their body wash hidden away for when a woman by chance will take a shower with you, boy, are you missing out on one of the great joys of life. Both Origin in Maine and Hero Soap can be reached by special links I've set up at mountaintoppodcast.com. When you visit either one of our sponsors, please use the code MOUNTAIN10 to get an extra 10% off. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.